Welcome to the On-Air Radio Show, the show that talks about anything and everything, where nothing is sacred, watered down, or PC. With your hosts, Joe Rooz, Big JP, Joey Drapes, and Al. Be part of the conversation and call us at 718-710-4578. That's 718-710-4578.
How y'all doing? This is the On-Air Radio Show, part of the On-Air Radio Network.
Can't get him to stop.
Hey, you got it right.
I did.
Yeah, you did.
After 3 takes, I got it right.
Part of the On-Air Radio Network, yes.
Yes, we are cruising into some new territory. We're starting our own radio network, we think.
Yeah.
Well, we did, actually.
Well, we did.
We've started it, and actually we were in the process of building our new website, so once that's up and running, we'll let you know when you can get there.
That's right. So if anybody out there wants to contribute a podcast to our station, when it's up and running, we will give you a link. We'll even tell you here how to contact us personally so that you can get in touch with us and let us know that you want to be a part of the network. Basically, anything goes on our network. You know, if you want to talk about dongs, if you want to talk about bestiality, we don't give a crap. Whatever. Just get us ratings. That's all we care about.
Just get our numbers up, get our live listens up, and we're good to go.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is actually going to be a 15-minute pre-show to the show.
The pre-show show.
The pre-show show.
Yes, big show today, actually, guys.
Yes.
Very big show
and,
today.
and you know
Sponsored by
what?
Coca-Cola.
I am going to let Joey Rooz tell you why it is such a big show, because he is the man who got us our special guest. So, Joe, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. It's going to be a great show because it's being brought to you by Coca-Cola and Ford. If you check out our website, you could see those links up there. And if you want to advertise with us, you can see that, Joe. Would you like a free car, Joe? I can't hear you.
I know you can't.
Jay has your mic shut off.
Put my mic on!
There's Joe. All right, sorry,
That's
Joe.
what it took. All right.
Again, he holds the title for World's Greatest
I did that on
Engineer.
purpose.
Yeah.
I did that on purpose because I didn't want you cutting into his his thing here. But go ahead.
His little thing. Well, folks, we got a really great show ahead for you tonight. We're going to start off with something really on the edge, very controversial. In light of the recent British secession from the European Union.
What is it, Britex?
Brexit.
Yeah, Britex is a
Can anyone
baby
explain
carrier.
to me exactly what Britex means? I mean, I know what's going on, but you know.
Well, it's not Britex, it's Brexit, and that's the Europe. That's the United Kingdom separating or seceding. From
Joe is getting a round of applause for the very intellectual question. Go ahead, Joe. That was good.
Okay. No, seriously.
I- you know
when
what?
did they come
I-
up with this
that's-
term? Did they invent it? It's
yeah,
just,
well, it's a combination of British and exit.
okay.
The British exit from the
Britex.
European Union.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, here you go. This is what we drink here.
Actually, it sounds like a
7-Eleven
porn store.
chillers.
Oh wait, let me put that camera on. The camera's not on air. Okay.
Aw.
The only way to
Now he
survive. The only way to survive this show is with iced coffee.
The funny thing, Joe, is that he was talking about you interrupting me, right? So,
Anyway, who's our guest today?
So we're going to have a very special guest, and I'm really excited to talk to him, too. His name is Daniel Miller. He is the president of the Texas Nationalist Movement. And you may have seen trending on Facebook and Twitter the hashtag Texit. So he's going to be with us at the 7 o'clock hour.
Hence the reason why we're starting 15 minutes early.
Yes, yep. So because he's going to be calling exactly when the show is supposed to start, so we want to make sure that we're ready to go for him. So yeah, he'll be calling in, and we have a few questions we want to ask about the whole Texas secession movement.
I actually have some audio from the Texas secession movement.
Oh, do you really?
Yes, I do. You ready?
Mana, the meatloaf! Fuck!
Nice.
Yeah.
So trying to keep this professional, Jeff.
I told you when he comes, we will.
But they might be listening now. We don't want to scare them away.
All right. I'm sorry.
So he'll be with us at 7 o'clock, and we'll have him for a little while. And so if you have any questions, if you're listening in, if you want to throw the questions up in the chat group on live stream, you could do that. We're at livestream.com/onairradioshow. Or on Facebook, you could message us on Facebook through our group, and we'll get that. Or you could send us a tweet at OnAirRadioNet, and we can throw those questions up to Mr. Miller when he calls
Yeah,
in.
come on, you twatters.
So it's interesting because this whole thing with the British secession from the EU.
Well, before we get into that, why don't we go through, because this is the pre-show I mean, the pre-show show.
Pre-show show.
Yeah, there we go. The pre-show show.
We did the pre-show before
right.
we did the pre-show
yeah.
show.
So this is the pre-show show. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell you guys what's going on, what's on our agenda today. One is the Britox, whatever the hell it is. Yeah, the shit on Britain. Whatever.
Actually, sounds like something you put on your hair.
No, actually, my daughter's car seat is called Britex.
Yeah.
So I just get it. Yeah, I just get them kind of confused. But anyway, the British secession. We'll talk about that. We'll touch on the bombing at Istanbul.
Things are getting crazy world out there, guys.
And then we'll probably finish with the parrot who
that's
a
hell of a story.
telling Joey Rooz about this story,
Yeah.
and Joey Rooz was like, "Yeah, we got to talk about it." But it's about a parrot.
Did you actually verify that story? Is it true?
Well, Fox News is carrying it, so I think it's got to have some truth to it.
Wow.
But it's about a parrot whose testimony might be submitted as evidence in a murder trial.
Well, doesn't a guy have a right to question his accuser? And if the parrot, the lawyer has to get up there and cross-examine this guy, this parrot. That's why I don't think this is very plausible.
Later in the show, we have some audio from the court proceedings where they were doing the pretrial questioning of the parrot. So
if I can find it,
we'll bring that up to you later on.
Yeah.
Okay. And so yeah, but it's a good point though.
Yeah. But here's the thing:
is the guy a pirate or something?
I had heard that this isn't the first time the testimony of a parrot has been questioned. The there was a time where a public defender.
He's an honest parrot.
No, there was another case. I don't know where, but this parrot had heard something go on, and the public defender said that he wanted the parrot's testimony brought into the case. The judge denied it at that time, but.
Did you guys ever see that joke on Sesame Street? Where a guy comes to the door and he goes, and the parrot goes, "Who is it?" And the guy goes, "It's the plumber. I'm here to fix the sink." And the parrot goes, "Who is it?" A long story short, he gets a heart attack. He dies. Lady comes home, goes, "Who is it?" He goes, "That's the plumber. He's here to fix the sink."
How would that be on Sesame Street?
I was on Sesame Street.
Was it Sesame Street or the Electric Company?
Maybe the Electric Company. I get my kids' shows confused.
Because I think that Sesame Street would have somebody having a heart attack.
Well,
and then we're going to finish. We're going to finish the night. On the show. We'll finish the night with the story about the jumper in the Staten Island Mall.
Oh, I didn't hear about that. You'll have to tell me about that off the air.
I will tell you. Well, you'll hear it when we go on air with everybody else.
Okay.
So that is that. Now I have a question.
So we have a very good show tonight.
Yeah, we do. We have a very action-packed show.
But you know what we're missing tonight?
No Alan.
No Alan.
Oh yeah,
no 2 cents.
I do miss Alan.
No 2 cents, no Alan, no crazy rants from Alan tonight.
Are these people happy Alan's not here? Is that what it is?
None of this.
Holy shit!
Okay.
Oh my God!
I'll need some new eardrums now.
Wow, I can't hear.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Oh my goodness!
Wow! Oh my God!
Well, it's about close to what Alan does, right?
Wow, I guess so. Sweet baby Jesus.
Oh boy.
Since this is our first pre-show show, do we actually end this show to go to the next show, or we're just going to continue?
We're just going to continue on.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, the guy's going to be calling in at 7, so
we'll take a Menomina break if you want.
Love the Menomina. Oh man, Shiki baby, help me out on this one, Shiki. Thank you, Shiki.
Nice.
Shiki didn't like the Godzilla.
That was a little
Wow.
too loud. Well, you know what happened? I had the volume turned up too much.
Holy Christmas.
Hey, look, things happen,
Yeah.
Things happen.
I was lucky enough to get some audio of President Obama's reaction to Texas wanting to secede.
Did you know?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good.
Alrighty, here you go.
Shit's getting way too complicated for me.
And it probably is because he's an idiot. So, you know, I mean, this is just what it is. It's the
They
truth.
actually asked him about this guy who's calling him. What's his name again?
Daniel Miller?
Daniel Miller, yeah. They asked him about him, and then this was Obama's response.
There are white folks, and then there are ignorant motherfuckers like you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think those are pretty heavy words right there.
I think that's definitely a throwdown.
Yeah.
But we are getting tweets on our on-air radio net feed right now from the folks surrounding the Texas National Movement. They are following us along here.
Nice.
So this is great. We're waiting for Daniel to call in. So
I wish somebody would get in the chat room.
we are having so the pre-show show. This is pretty cool. I like this.
I do too.
Getting started early for a change.
Yeah, right.
At least-
And on time.
At least this time we remembered to hit the on-air button. What was that?
My
That's Joe's
creaky
mic.
door.
So
Excuse me.
So. I actually did want to say something. I
Nice.
can't remember what it was. So this is great. We're waiting for What are you doing? for Daniel to call in. So
I'm sorry.
He's got the website up.
I had the website up
Now-
and didn't realize that was happening.
So now, remember that happened to me last week, and I got
Yes.
excoriated for it.
You got what?
Excoriated.
What the hell is that?
Look it up.
You got scolded?
Yes, basically.
I like the old, what do you call it that you used to have on here?
What? The media player?
Yeah, the old media player.
Just
'Cause
click the-
It had when you clicked on the media player,
Mhm.
it brought you to it had the live stream chat on it.
Oh no!
Now
no.
I gotta go to live stream.
No, just scroll down.
It's not here.
Dude, scroll down. See live stream?
Yeah. Click. Sorry.
That's okay. Working these things out takes some time sometimes, and let's.
Listen,
Make sure our
I'm
phone line is
I'm
up.
kind of computer savvy, but sometimes I miss.
I don't think you're so
stupid.
computer
I miss
savvy.
simple things like that.
Yeah, well, get with it, buddy. If you're working the board. So Joe,
Yes.
how you feeling these days?
Actually, I'm feeling quite depressed over what's going on in the world today. I mean, it seems that we have one terrorist attack right after another. It's getting to the point where I'm afraid to go to the movies. That some nut is going to get crazy and shoot up. You can't go to an airport, any place with other people. I think we're going to turn into a race of beings that never leave their home. We'll all communicate through these little timepieces that we carry around in our wallets. These cell phones, and never leave our home because we're afraid. The terrorists have won. I got to tell you.
Well, if that's the goal.
Something has to be done about this. I mean, really, I have no answers. Believe me, I'm just a working stiff. But this is getting to the point where, every week 30, 40 people here, 30, 40 people here. We are at war with these ingrates, these I don't even know what to call them. They're subhuman people.
Savages.
Yeah. So I don't know. You guys know I'm a Trumpette. I'm for Donald Trump. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump.
You're a Trumpster.
I'm a trumpeter, whatever you want to call me. But the truth of the matter is, he has radical beliefs on what to do about these people. Very violent beliefs. He said it today when he was talking about, he says, we're not allowed to waterboard people anymore. We're not allowed to
He wants to bring in the medieval times.
Yeah. Well,
I love him.
you got to fight fire with fire. I'm not a violent guy by any stretch of the imagination, and I hate to see any what they call collateral damage, but that's what we're getting here. We're getting innocent people getting killed because these wackos don't give a shit. It's collateral damage. That's what they're doing. That's what they're looking for, collateral damage. Mm-hmm. What do we do with these people? What do we do? We have to annihilate them and everyone that stands next to them. Unfortunately, if they're innocent people, God, I'm sorry, but don't go where they are. What's his name? He used to have a great line. comedian. He just passed away. Yeah, he used to have a great line about hunger. He says, "Why don't they just go where the food is?"
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with these terrorists. If they don't want to be part of when we
have a phone call.
Oh, that's probably our guy. It's 7:00. I'll get off my rant. I'm sorry, guys.
And Joe has finished his rant. And, hey, we have Daniel Miller of the Texas Nationalist Movement on the line. Daniel, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. This is Joe. We've been messaging back and forth through Twitter. Thank you for calling in and making the time for us.
Yeah.
Not a problem at all.
Okay,
And
welcome to On Air.
Welcome to the On Air radio show.
Well, I caught a little bit of the show beforehand, and
I'm sorry to hear that.
And I still called in. That's good.
I know, God bless you for that one.
You're a brave man.
You are. You're a brave, brave
very,
soul.
very, very brave. So you're here with myself, Joe. I got my partner here, Jay, and our esteemed colleague on the other side of the room here is Joey Drapes. And man, this is great. We're glad you called. There's a lot of exciting things going on out there.
Well, there's no doubt about that. It's we've been saying this for a long time that Texas independence is trending, and now it literally is trending on social media. So, but yeah, it's been very exciting. Been as you can imagine, a very busy, last 10 days for us.
Sure, it has. Dana, can you tell us a little bit about the Texas Nationalist Movement and how you guys got started?
Sure. We're the largest organization in Texas pursuing Texas independence. We want Texas to be an independent nation. We've been around for well over a decade now, and we've been strongly advocating for the independence of Texas, that Texas would stand up and become a nation of its own. So, it's been a very, very long journey in that regard. We've, like I said, been at it for a little over a decade as the organization. I've personally been fighting for this for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years in August. Wow. So this is what we do. And while it may be surprising to some people to know that, A, we didn't just pop up overnight, and B, we're not just, some kind of, Facebook group or something that just popped up in someone's garage. The fact is that we're, outside the two major political parties here in Texas, we're the largest political organization here. We're the second largest independence movement in the Western Hemisphere and one of the largest in the entire world. So, this is what we do, and we're closer than we've ever been to getting a vote on Texas independence.
Now, where exactly do you stand on that right now?
Well, it's a long process. Obviously, for us in this process, what we understand is that it has to go to a vote of the people. We're essentially what we've been working for is what everyone just witnessed taking place over in the UK. We want a very open and public debate on this issue, on the merits of staying in or leaving the union. And then we want to put it to a question of the voters. So, Given the momentum that we have had over the last 2 years, there's actually been an active campaign in the last 2 years with an outcome that's been designed to create an environment where we could get a referendum. In the successes that we've had, I feel very confident that we're going to get legislation introduced in the next session of the Texas legislature calling for a vote on independence.
Wow, that's great.
Jay?
What promoted you to want to secede?
What prompted?
Yes. There you go.
Well, it's a long story, and so I'll try to keep it as short as possible. But it goes back to that 20 years ago. I grew up in a blue collar household. We were, we always had enough to get by, but never enough to get ahead. And my parents were decidedly old school, but one of the things that I learned a lot from was my dad. Watching my dad, who was a retired iron worker, just watching him be involved in the political process. No matter what was going on, he was always sort of engaged in that process, never as an elected official, but always as just a vocal advocate of one position or the other. And so, growing up in a household where this idea that you have to be engaged in this political system, growing up in that household has a tendency to wear on you a little bit, right? It's going to rub off on you some.
Right.
So, that was part of the lesson that was taught. And, what I got to see was election cycle after election cycle, my dad pour his heart and soul into a candidate or a series of candidates or a party or whatever it was, only to be left feeling betrayed after that person was sent. And of course, always at that time, the focus was on that the federal side of things. That seemed to be where the rub was all the time, was the federal government. So, I got to see this happen election after election after election, and watch my dad ride the hope roller coaster. And so, I get out of high school. I'm politically aware. I'm real sensitive to these things, and I want to go in there just like every young guy, and I want to make a difference. And so I run for mayor of my hometown. It's a little town of about 5,000 people. I got stomped in a three-way race. Who wants an 18-year-old mayor, right? So, but anyway, it was really sort of my first taste of this, and it was my rite of passage to come out of this and get engaged in politics. It was kind of my first foray. It's like this is what I learned growing up, and so this is what I need to do. And so I stayed involved, and whether it be getting involved with different types of activism through college or whatever. I remember at one point shadowing a congressman and just wearing that guy out at every town hall meeting over Social Security. He was going into these town hall meetings and, just scaring the crap out of the senior citizens about the Social Security payments they put in. And I can remember shadowing that guy and going and handing out copies of his voting record and just watching this guy go into these apoplectic fits every time he would go to a town hall and I would be there, to the point he finally retired. But it got to the point where it became very frustrating. It was like everything that you do related to the federal government, it's like cutting off the head of a hydra. You cut one head off and two more spring up. And so, I was at a point of frustration, where I was ready just to, I just didn't know what to do, like a lot of people. I mean, think about how many disaffected voters are out there. And I had a chance meeting with a couple of brothers, and they could sense my frustration. And so they did something. They handed me a copy of the U.S. Constitution, one of the Communist Manifesto. Mm-hmm. And they said, look, we want you to go home. We want you to read these. And then think to yourself, which one does the federal government look more like? Which one does the system look the most like? And I got to tell you, I was pretty nervous, man. I was a Cold War kid, right? So being in possession of a copy of the Communist Manifesto was just even kind of a scary thing for me. Right. I'm going to tell you, I was so flipped out about it at that time. I literally stuffed it under the seat of my car like I was a drug mule. I mean, I did not let you don't know what's going to happen. Somebody pulls you over, you got a copy of the Communist Manifesto, it's like Joe McCarthy's going to come out of the cop car and do something. So anyway, but I did. I took the challenge. I read the U.S. Constitution, which frankly was the first time I'd ever, even though, you had the education, you read it in high school, you read it in college. I mean, I really, out of a desire to understand what I was experiencing, I think probably for the first time just really read it. Mm-hmm. And then I read the Communist Manifesto. And what I came to the realization at that point was that really and truly what we have seen was this consolidation of power and quote unquote authority into this strong, almost this autocratic central bureaucracy that really resembled what we were fighting against in the Cold War. All the things that we said that the Soviet Union was. You wake up one day and you realize, that's essentially us. That's what's going on here. Right. So, that was sort of a breaking point for me. It was like, look, if I thought I was depressed before that, man, I was in a spiral at that point. But then it was presented to me, this idea that Texas, sort of even in an offhanded way, Texas didn't have to do this. Texas could be an independent nation, and we could govern ourselves. Right. And so then you begin to explore this disconnect between Texas and the rest of the union, and how I guess the inequities between Texas and the federal government, and the growth of the federal government as opposed. So you begin to start evaluating those things, and you realize, look, this is the answer. It's not some reaction to a single thing. It's a reaction to a realization that the federal government is consolidating as much power as it possibly can, and the bureaucracy is doing a horrible job of devolving that power back to the states and the people, and frankly doing a horrible job of what it's supposed to be doing according to the U.S. Constitution.
Right. Daniel, can I ask you a question? My question to you is that...
I mean, it's your radio show. Isn't that what you do? It's a big question.
True. The question I have for you...
Hold on 1 second. Daniel, do you have a computer in the background running? Because we're getting feedback. We're hearing ourselves.
No. You guys are piping through the headphones. This could be a Skype issue, but
It probably is, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
We'll see if it clears up.
All right. My question to you is Texas versus White basically put out that that no state can secede from the U.S. government. So legally, would you guys be able to secede?
Texas versus White said a lot of things. I mean, let's be honest. Texas versus White made a lot of assertions. But, okay. I don't know how long you guys are going to have me on, but because you invoked the hideous and odious Texas versus White, I can tell you we're going to be a while.
You can have the show all you want, bro.
Yeah, look. Here's the problems. And this is kind of the age-old deal. The critics, our critics especially, and really, apologists for the Centralistas in Washington D.C., they love to drag out Texas versus White. Texas versus White is such a pathetic ruling from the Supreme Court. It is perhaps, with the exception of the ones that are that deal with morally reprehensible things, it is perhaps the worst decision to ever come out of it. So let me kind of take you through just some things about Texas versus White, why it's horrible and why it doesn't apply. Number one, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court at the time was Salmon P. Chase. Okay, the suit that was in controversy actually dealt with actions that Salmon P. Chase took while he was Secretary of the Treasury under Lincoln. So by all rights, he should have recused himself from the case. We've actually seen modern-day examples where Supreme Court justices had to recuse themselves from ruling on a case for which they had interest. So you got to take that into this. So there was that particular defect. But then you get into some assertions that Chase makes, which were essentially to give the court's rubber stamp to some of the policies that were not particularly popular at the time. So you get things like Chase's assertion that the United States Constitution is not a document unto itself, but it was an amending document of the Articles of Confederation. That was brand new. That doctrine had never been promulgated before, that said that not only do we live under the Constitution, but we also sort of live under the Articles of Confederation, when every grade school kid can tell you that the Articles of Confederation were done away with. As a matter of fact, the 13 colonies had to secede from the Union creating the Articles of Confederation to adopt the U.S. Constitution. So that was brand new, and no one would ever argue that we live under the Articles of Confederation. Not anyone in any kind of with any intellectual honesty. Mm-hmm. The other thing that's interesting about Texas versus White is the assertion that Salmon P. Chase makes, that the phrase that they quote often is that it is an indestructible union comprised of indestructible states. Well, apparently no one sent that memo to West Virginia, right? So that's another part of it. He talks about that this union is indestructible, that the states are indestructible, which if we were to follow that doctrine to its logical conclusion, West Virginia is not a state. I don't think anyone is going to step up and say that West Virginia is not a state. So either West Virginia is not a state or Salmon P. Chase is a liar. Mm-hmm. Okay. So then you carry that out to its next logical conclusion, right? You go into dig more into Texas versus White, and you see that he essentially says that states may not leave the union. Okay. Because it's an indestructible union comprised of indestructible states. But then he goes on to lay out a mechanism which states can use to exit the union, which is revolution and consent of the other states. So you have conflicting statements on his part. Either we can leave or we can't leave, but we can't have it both ways. So, what that does is, while these people want to take Texas versus White and use it as some sort of gospel, it's like God chiseled it on stone tablets and handed them down to Moses on Mount Sinai, and he brought it down, and suddenly it's law. The fact of the matter is that it had always been considered. Chase's comments on the issue of states leaving the union had been considered dicta. And these are just commentary because they were not necessarily directly pertinent to the matter of controversy in Texas versus White. But here's the final nail in the coffin. When people bring out Texas versus White, they somehow believe that U.S. history stopped in 1869. Like nothing else happened from 1869 forward.
Right.
Okay, so they don't take a look at the fact that in the early 20th century there was a treaty signed called Missouri v. Holland, or there was a Supreme Court case called Missouri v. Holland, where the United States federal government signed a treaty, strangely enough, a migratory bird treaty with Great Britain, and there was a lawsuit about that made it all the way to the Supreme Court, where the state of Missouri basically said, look, we've got our own limits on hunting migratory birds. Your treaty doesn't apply to us. And the Supreme Court held that treaties were incorporated into the body of laws, though they were part of the Constitution, and therefore the states were bound by them. Okay, so it upheld this belief, this legal principle that treaties were on par with any other law that was made, and that came from the court. So if that's the case, then you have to fast forward and realize that the United States federal government signed the United Nations Treaty, right or wrong. I mean, we can debate that at some point too. Right. But we may all be in agreement as to what that means. But they signed the treaty, and Article 1, Section 2 of the United Nations Charter that's part of that treaty recognizes that all signatories to the treaty, all members of the United Nations, must uphold the right of self-determination as a fundamental right. Okay, so the right of self-determination is exactly what we're talking about.
Right. The
people of Texas making their decision. But then you go on and you go, look, if Texas versus White is the truth that these unions are indestructible and this right of self-determination were completely erased by White,
Skype issue.
In the last 60 to 70 years of U.S. foreign policy, believe that Texas versus White was the end-all, be-all. They accuse us of wanting to look back because we want to have an independent Texas, but they're the ones stuck in the past, right? We're the ones that are looking at this in a modern scenario. We're looking at the present. We're looking toward the future, and we realize that a decision that was made by some questionable court decision that was made in the 19th century should not be binding and really has no effect on what it is that we're doing in the 21st century.
Huh.
That's a mouthful.
You ain't kidding.
We were having a little bit of a Skype problem too there, Daniel, for a little bit, so you kind of faded out on us at some point. But that's really interesting. Jay, you had a question?
Well, I'm just reading an article that was in the let me get the Texas Tribune, that they were saying that the secession wouldn't be legal, and there was a quote here from the late Supreme Court Justice Scalia that he said, "The answer is clear. If there was any constitutional issue resolved by the Civil War, it is that there is no right to secede. Hence, in the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation, indivisible."
Yeah, but you see, Daniel, I'm going to step on you for a second. You see, what you have to disengage your thinking process of is that we are one nation. We are not one nation. We are a country of 50 individual nations, individual states. Think of it more like instead of a nation, think of it like the American Union, similar to
like
the European Union.
Right.
Exactly. When Great Britain signed the Treaty of Paris, they signed the Treaty of Paris with 13 individual states. So Great Britain recognized each state as its own country. So we are a nation, if you want to use that term, built of 15 individual, separate and sovereign countries. Each state has that right of self-determination.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it this way. Okay, let's address the Scalia thing because, look, I've already had to fire off a nasty gram to the Texas Tribune over them posting that, and that if you want to call it an article, that's fine. But if you'll notice, they talked to an associate professor of politics, right? They don't talk to anybody who's a notable jurist on the issue.
Eric McDaniel.
But let's talk about Justice Scalia. Okay, that quote that they use is something that he wrote offhand in a letter in a response to a gentleman who was writing a screenplay, a comedy about Maine seceding from the Union. And so that's Scalia's sort of take on the issue without hearing an argument on it. And maybe he would have had his mind made up. But the beautiful part about this is it's not Scalia's decision. It's not up to the Supreme Court, and here's why. You understand the doctrine that where the Constitution is concerned, that in areas where the Constitution is silent, then those rights are reserved to the states and the people, right? That's the 10th Amendment. If the federal government is not granted a power, okay, if it's not explicitly laid out, then it is reserved for the states and the people. So when people say, well, a state leaving the Union is unconstitutional, the challenge is always, great, pull out a Constitution and show me where it says it. It's very explicit about how states enter the Union, but is absolutely silent on the issue of how states leave. And that's because there was no need for a set process for it. It was an understood process. And here's how you know. There were 3 states, New York included, that when they ratified the Constitution of the United States, they had explicit secession clauses in their state constitutions. It was always understood to be a right that was reserved to the states to exit the Union. Okay, so the Constitution's silent on it, therefore the power is reserved to the people in the states via the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, which again was extraordinarily important to the founders to put in the Bill of Rights. So then what that means for us here in Texas is that operable law becomes, what does Texas law say about it? And Texas law is pretty straightforward. In our post-Texas versus White Constitution, because we had to go through a bunch of hoops that we had to jump through after that unpleasantness in the 1860s. Mm-hmm. But it says very specifically,
to say it mildly.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I'm trying to be diplomatic. But Article 1, Section 1 of our Texas Constitution says in the words at the very end say that the perpetuity of the Union depends on the right of local self-government unimpaired to all the states. So that means that at the moment that the right of local self-government becomes impaired, which I think we can make a valid case that's true, then the Union is done. It's essentially saying we have to go at that point. So then you have to look at a right that's reserved, which is the right of self-determination in Article 1, Section 2 of our Constitution that says that the people have at all times the inalienable right to reform, alter, or abolish their form of government in such manner as they think expedient. So there's the operable law. I mean,
did we lose him?
I think we lost him.
Might have lost him.
We've been having trouble with Skype along. Very interesting conversation so far. But
should I try to disconnect and get him back?
Yeah, why not?
Let's see if we can get him back.
Let's see if we can get him back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the on-air radio show with Joey Rooz and Big JP.
And we did not hang up on
Joey
him.
Drapes. We were having some technical difficulties with Skype, of course. But we hope you're enjoying this conversation with Daniel, what's his last name? Miller?
Miller.
Daniel Miller of the TNM.
Actually, our internet connection went down that Skype is running off of.
Yep, I see it. It just came up on my computer, too.
So let's see if we can get him back. So in the meantime?
You can go to, www.tnm.org or tnm.com.
It's thetnm.org.
Thetnm.org.
And as soon as we can get our connection back and we can get Daniel back, we'll continue on here. This is the on-air radio show. This is Joe Rooz, Big JP, and Joey Drapes.
Why don't we take a little break down?
Yep. Let's take a little break.
That sounds like a plan. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the on-air radio show. We will take a few second break so we can get everything situated here. We'll be right back.
Okay, guys, break time is over. Now let's get back to work. It's the on-air radio show live. Okay, break time's over. Now let's get these guys back to work. It's the on-air radio show live from the dungeon. Only on onairradioshow.com.
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Again, technical difficulties. Today is a very rough day for us in the studio. So we will go to a break right now. Again, we're going to try to get Daniel Miller from the Texas National Movement back on here. As soon as we do, we will come back from break. Ladies and gentlemen, break time.
No worries. It happens. Great. I appreciate it. Okie doke. I'm good until probably 10 till 7, if that's all right.
When we come back. Do you have us back already, John?
Yeah, we're back.
We are back. Okay. All right. So Jay brought us out of the break faster than expected. All right. Yes. So this is the On-Air Radio Show. We have our connection back. We're with Daniel Miller. And Daniel was just talking to some really great information here. So, folks, I hope you're out there listening carefully. This is education you're not going to get anywhere else right now.
Nope. And I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, it is a topic that should be on everybody's mind. I think the federal government has failed us all, and secession is a good possibility for a lot of states out there, but especially Texas being one of the bigger ones.
Now, Daniel, speaking of which, the fact that Texas is so big, there's been a lot of question that I've seen, especially trending on Twitter and on Facebook and even on the Texas National Movement's Facebook page, which you can promote, by the way, if you like. Lots of questions about concerns about how are things going to get paid for in Texas if the federal government is removed from the picture. Right. So what would you come back with that? Like things like Social Security and Medicaid. Is it Medicaid or Medicare?
Both.
Both. And all the employment that the federal government has within the state of Texas.
Right. Okay. Let's take it a piece at a time. Oh, great! That's a Johnny Cash song. I'm not opposed. So let's just take it a bit at a time here, because much like a lot of the questions we get in, those are sort of rapid fire, and each one of those has their own answer.
Correct.
But let's start off with just something that is important to understand. We ran a report. We'd heard stories about how much Texas pays into the union versus how much we get back, and that's something that's been studied for decades. And there's always been this imbalance. I mean, I can remember when I got involved 20 years ago, the figure was like, for every dollar we pay in, we only get 90 cents back or something like that. Mm-hmm. But over the years, that number has steadily gotten worse. There's been a much greater lack of tax parity, if you want to call it that. So we did a study last year where we gathered information from the Office of Management Budget, the Internal Revenue Service, the Texas Comptroller, the Department of Defense, everywhere that we could grab information about this issue. And after extensive number crunching, what we came up with is that Texans pay into the federal coffers roughly year after year about anywhere from $350 to $400 billion. Okay. Right. That goes into the federal coffers. From that, we never see again anywhere from 120 to 100, sometimes 50 or 60 billion dollars of that. In other words, when we pay that money in, the federal government kicks some of that money back, but they also take a healthy chunk of it and spread it out in other places. Okay, so granted, that's what happens. Texas is one of a handful, about a dozen, maybe 15 states that actually put more into the federal system than we take out of it on a consistent basis. Mm-hmm. So starting with that, you have to understand that while we pay that much into the federal coffers, we also have to pay taxes here in the state to take care of the things that the federal side doesn't take care of. Okay, so you throw on top of that another $60 billion, and then you're able to compile a number that says, okay, this is how much without any additional tax burden, without any changes in the tax rates of the tax burden, this is what Texas taxpayers are on the hook for. So from there, you can get and estimate what Texas, as an independent nation, would be able to spend or have as a budget as an independent nation. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that virtually, for the most part, most functions of a national government already exist in some shape, form, or fashion inside the Texas government. We have a Texas military department. The comptroller already has what is essentially a state bank or central bank. We passed legislation in the last session to establish a gold depository, which has a system for transactions or an alternative currency. So we've got a lot of the things that a national government would have. That being said, now you go in there and you say, okay, what can we spend the money on? Well, one of the questions that we get most often is, what will happen to my Social Security? People are very concerned with an aging population. It's understandably so. People paid into this system, and there is an expectation that they're going to get something out of it. Now, let's also be honest about this, is that the Social Security retirement system is teetering on the precipice as it is. I mean, it's the projected figures of when it's going to run out of money and go bankrupt change, but they keep revising them sooner and sooner. I think we're at like 2032 now is the most revised figure of when Social Security is going to go bankrupt.
Right.
But that being said, understand that any of those benefit payments, whether it's Social Security benefits, veterans benefits, any of those systems that money has been paid into that you're receiving a benefit from, not according to us, but according to the federal government, their websites, their offices. If you look it up, you'll find it. All of those are paid into benefits that you can collect if you live outside of the United States. There are some exceptions, like you can't live in North Korea or Belarus or some places like that. But by and large, if you paid into it, that's an obligation that exists between the federal government and you to pay that benefit. And the federal government has absolutely no trouble paying those benefits to you if you live outside the United States. Mm-hmm. But some people say, what if the United States wants to be punitive, right? They want to punish Texas for leaving. Well, here's what it works out to be. Federal benefits payments of all shapes and sizes total to Texans $74 billion a year. Okay, so Now look at that big pot of money that we're no longer sending to Washington, D.C., that we're not having wasted by 180,000 pages of federal rules, laws, and regulations. You know, we're not paying 90,000 people a salary larger than our own governor. Right. Now we can spend that according to our priorities.
Right.
And if the federal government decided to abrogate the responsibility of those people, we could absorb that. We could take care of that.
Wow.
Would probably be more safe if Texas seceded than relying on the federal government.
Well, I think that's where people are. You know, we do get these questions a lot, and people want to know these things. You know, they want to sort of divine the future. They want to. I think a lot of us, they're testing it out to see if we've actually thought this thing through.
Yeah, you see that a lot in your Facebook page. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you know, you guys are, you know, you can't just go off half cocked and do this. It's like, you know, if you realized how many economic reports I am required to read on a regular basis, you would understand that we've really thought these things through. But, you know, but it's like the military. You know, there's absolutely no doubt that the United States military and defense spending has had a tremendous impact on Texas. It has a tremendous economic impact. But when you break it down dollar for dollar, you realize that Texas, as an independent nation, could spend 2% of its GDP, which, by the way, is the guideline, the target that they're working to for all nations of NATO, as a minimum spending is 2% of GDP. And Texas would still have one of the most well-funded, even if we met the NATO minimum, which, by the way, most NATO countries don't meet the minimum percentage. Just go ahead and lay that out there. But if we hit the NATO minimum, we would have one of the most well-funded militaries in the entire world because of our GDP. You know, we're the 9th largest economy in the world. So, you know, this idea that suddenly we would, you know, our military spent, because the military was gone, the federal government was gone, those bases would dry up and the economic impact, that's not the case. I mean, if we were to spend 2% of our GDP per the NATO sort of rules that they're trying to establish, we would actually be pumping more defense money into Texas than we're already getting from the federal government. Really? So that's, you know, it's kind of a fallacious argument.
You see, you actually touched on a couple of things I wanted to go into next with you is about, you know, where does Texas actually come in the, because if Texas seceded, and it was successful, which, by the way, you know, I don't know if I'm I'm sure you remember. I told you already. I'm very pro this for my reasons. Where does Texas stand within the countries of the world? Now, I know Texas is one of the largest states in the American Union. Like you said, it has one of the largest GDPs. But in the world, where do we stand?
Well, it's interesting because people love to know what the rankings are. You know, how big Texas is bigger than France. You know, it's roughly the same size as Australia. You know, people love those. But look, let me just put it to you this way. You know, we all know the very important figures that we are the 9th largest economy in the world. We're the major manufacturing export state in the United States currently, and we've got world-class ports where we can trade and do all those things. But here's the thing that's the most important that I want people to begin to understand is that there is this argument, this feeling on behalf of the critics that they somehow want to say that, well, Texas is the 9th largest economy. That means there are 8 other people that are ahead of you. You know, you're not big enough. You don't have enough people. You don't have enough industry. I mean, these are things we always hear from the critics. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is if you look at the nations of the world, which we're bumping on about 200 recognized countries around the world at this point,
right.
Understand that Texas ranks in the tops in virtually every one of those categories of nations, which means that Texas is part of a political and economic union right now without our independence. Mm-hmm. But yet there are in many cases, 190, 180 some odd other nations out there that don't rank as highly as we do on any of these measurable criteria. But they have one thing that we don't have, and that is the ability to govern themselves. So, you know, we look at it and we say, okay, this is interesting. So you say that Texas has all these things, but we're incapable of governing ourselves. But close your eyes, put your finger on a map of the world and point to a country and tell me why they've got something that we don't. Why can they make it and not us?
Right. Well, Jay?
Personally, I think every state should secede because the federal government has failed us miserably.
Texas isn't the only state, though, that has secession measures or discussions of secession on the plate, correct?
No. And as a matter of fact, this is one of the great myths. You know, and you'll see it even especially promulgated by Texans, that Texans reserve some sort of special right. But we don't. You know, every state has the ability to become independent. It's just the way that it is. A lot of it goes back to the fact that the state of New York and 2 other states had that explicit secession clause in their constitution upon ratification of the Constitution, because a right enjoyed by one state is accessible to all the other states. So the fact of the matter is that any state can do this, and frankly, you know, using what I was saying a moment ago, the vast majority of the states in the United States would benefit from being out from under the federal government.
Oh, I agree.
Many of the arguments that we use in favor of Texas leaving the Union work for any state.
Right.
You know, whether it be the, you know, bent double over 180,000 pages of federal laws, rules, and regulations that if put end to end would measure 33 miles long. You know, that doesn't just apply to us. That applies to every state, because we're all being crushed under the weight of that federal bureaucracy. And I think what you're hitting on here is something that we're seeing sort of in the general Eurosceptic movement in Europe, these discussions that are being had, but they're discussions that are being had here in the United States as well, where states are looking at it and they're re-examining their relationship. Right. You know, California has got a movement. We're in communication with those guys, and look, from a political standpoint, we don't agree on a lot, you know, but the fact of the matter is we can agree on certain things. You know, we've got mutual defense concerns. Mm-hmm. You know, we've got both of us have significant concerns about this federal bureaucracy, this federal overreach. Mm-hmm. You know, and we can agree that California needs to be governed by Californians and Texas needs to be governed by Texas, and we can trade with one another. And frankly, that's the sort of relationships that we need to be looking at as we move into the 21st century.
Right. I mean, I could easily see, say, 6 states moving ahead with secession, forming some type of, you know, if you want to say a confederacy, to trade with one another, to work with one another. So I don't think any one state would really stand alone in that respect.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's Daniel, I got to tell you, I really think that this is. I would love to see this in my lifetime, and I hope it happens. And
we're definitely closer than we've ever been.
Yeah.
The fact that and this has been sort of one of the consistent questions from the media about this is this whole Brexit thing. What does this Brexit thing mean for Texas and the rest of the states? And what I've had to tell them is that, look, this has been going on all along. What Brexit did for us was it just made you pay attention.
Right,
it made
exactly.
media pay attention. But a happy byproduct of this is the fact that the people here are beginning to examine. They over here it's almost like that we're insulated from the rest of the world by the oceans, and it takes some truly earth-shattering things to happen. So many Americans woke up one day, and suddenly the UK had left the EU, and of course, a lot of people weren't even familiar with what the EU was. They thought Brexit was the meal between breakfast and lunch. But what it did was people are keyed into this because the similarities are inescapable. And as they look at it and they're trying to figure out what this means because it's new, it's forcing them to look at the debate that was being had over there between the Leave and the Remain side and even sort of the larger Eurosceptic thing. Mm-hmm. And when they hear what the reasons for Britain wanting to leave the EU are, it all sounds very familiar to them.
Oh, it sure does. Yeah.
And if it can force this reexamination of our relationships as states with one another and as part of a larger federal union, then we know or we suspect heavily what's going to come out of that.
That's right. One of the great things that takes place when you talk to folks about Brexit and Texit and Okexit and Calexit or whatever they call it over there, is the one thing that you saw, which was amazing, was secession taking place nonviolently. It was the vote of the people to do that. Folks here, for whatever strange reason, seem to think that the moment that a state declares its independence and votes for secession, that suddenly the 82nd Airborne is going to be dropped in across the borders, and that we're going to have another unfortunate incident, as you described earlier. It's one of those. It's a very shallow and very narrow-minded, and quite honestly, I think a childish way of looking at things. It's important that we have these conversations as adults, serious conversations about them, and we don't fall into that trap of thinking that the only way to settle this would be through violence.
Yeah, and this is why, if you go back to when we were talking about Texas versus White, and I keep talking about 60 to 70 years of U.S. foreign policy over this right of self-determination. I think after 60 to 70 years of the federal government going around the world and essentially sending troops to uphold the right of self-determination, I think the rest of the world would look rather dimly upon the federal government if they decided to use force of arms to suppress a vote of the people. But that also speaks to the idea of why this must be done the right way. We made it a very clear point upon the foundation of our organization to be sure to lead with the idea that this is a peaceful political process. That's what we're seeking here. Right. Because this idea of a state leaving the Union seems to evoke this idea of a violent revolution. And when you look around the world and you see that that's not really the case for the vast majority of independence movements and countries that have popped up around the world, it seems strange, but you have to lead with that so that people understand what this is. Look, we're going to follow a peaceful political process. We're going to follow the letter of the law. We're going to uphold our rights. We're going to stand up for our right of self-determination, and we're going to go through the process. It's why we're fighting so hard to not only get and win a referendum, but also to go through this process and really affect the minds and the hearts of the people, to get them to make our case to those folks so that it's not something that's inflamed by passion, so that it can be a reasoned, rational decision.
Folks, this is the On Air Radio Show. We are talking with Daniel Miller, the president of the Texas Nationalist Movement. Daniel, thank you so much for calling in tonight. We really do appreciate you taking the time out of your crazy busy schedule. So if you want to plug your website, plug your Facebook page, go right ahead.
Absolutely. Look, people can jump to whatever information they want to find about us at our website. It's thetnm.org. That's THETNM as in Mary.org. And you can get to our Facebook page, our Twitter. We've got frequently asked questions on there that cover a wide range of topics, so do not hesitate to. Oh, and one other thing, too, the report that I mentioned earlier that we did related to the amount of money Texas puts into the union, it's actually a report called Can Texas Make It? And it's available for free download on our website.
Yep, actually we have it up on one of our screens here. We've been looking through it as you've been talking about it.
Yes.
So that's great. Daniel, also, if you with your permission, of course, I'd like to put a link up on our website to your website. To direct some of the traffic over that way.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, I really do appreciate it. I had a good time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Daniel. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, no problem. You guys have a great evening.
Great day.
You too, sir.
He's a very informative man. I mean, he definitely knows the subject.
That was amazing.
I find it very, very difficult to believe it'll ever happen, but stranger things have happened. Let's face it.
True.
Brexit has happened.
There you go. There's so many things to consider. And I appreciate the fact that he says he wants to do this legally
and peacefully,
and peacefully, right. and that's really the only way to go. But you're talking about 49 states saying to this one state, "Yeah, you can do this." And that's a hard bridge to cross. And it's unfortunate because in a sense you're telling people how to live. I would much rather see some sort of compromise made with all these states that have problems. I think the problem lies with the federal government, not with the state individually wanting to secede. If the states and all the states would just change the damn government to not so much interfere and not so much have so much waste in spending.
Well, Joe, you hit the key point just a few seconds ago. You said to have one dictating how another should live.
Yeah.
So that's what happens with our federal government.
I definitely understand where Mr. Miller's coming from. I mean, he's definitely, he knows the subject. There's nobody knows.
Oh yeah, he's
the subject.
Very, very intelligent about the subject.
And it was great to hear him speak. I really, found out a lot of information. I sat back and I listened, and I think
I was waiting for you to jump in. You had so many great questions
before
the show started.
It wasn't my place to jump in. I don't know the subject, so the basic thing was for me to listen to him and find out what the subject's all about. And he is informative, and believe me, I know he's got an uphill battle. There's no question about it. And his big battle is that he's got 49 other states that have to ratify what this one state wants to do. And that's a hard thing to do. Sorry, Jake, go right ahead.
I figured out the acronym if they secede. It's UROT. United Republic of Texas.
Okay.
UROT.
Anyway, not that I want Texas to succeed, because I'm America, do or die. Let me wave a little bit of a flag, and I want the unions to stay together and always stay together. But I do understand. I think the problem is with changing the federal government so they don't have to succeed.
Yeah, but the problem is you can't change the federal government anymore. It's beyond that point.
I think we're in the process of changing it right this minute.
It's not going to happen
with the elections and
not going to happen.
Stranger things have happened, boss. That,
true,
right?
true. But it's so entrenched at this point. Nothing's going to change. You might get a little bit here or there.
Oh, you have a little faith.
Throw a little bone.
Yeah.
I don't think that you're going to see any substantial change that's going to affect anything in your everyday life. And to be honest with you, Joe, honestly, why should the federal government be so involved in your everyday life? I was telling Jay this afternoon.
I cannot disagree with that.
Why?
I cannot disagree with the actual point of I don't think the federal government should have anything to do with religion or I believe in states' rights. I've always believed in states' rights because people in different parts of the country live differently.
Right.
They do. A New Yorker lives differently than a Texan or anyone down south. We're just different people.
And I love that you said it that way, Joe.
Yeah.
I love that you said it that way because I've been to Texas a few times. Like I'm getting married.
Sure.
I'll be getting married down in Texas. I'll be eventually living down in Texas, and I'm looking forward to living in my new country.
Yeah.
But
okay.
all right? But I want to tell you.
Now, let me ask you
Wait,
something. Do we have to pay the international tax when we fly to you?
You might have to now.
Fuck! Come on now.
You should have
Get a
asked that question when
passport,
Daniel's
yeah.
on the phone. But the great thing is, and something that you see more in Texas than really anywhere else that I've been, anyway, is a sense of identity.
Oh, absolutely.
A Texan is a Texan.
Absolutely.
You don't get that in New York.
No, you do. A New Yorker is a New Yorker. It goes down to if you're from Brooklyn, you're from Brooklyn. It's believe me.
Right, but when you identify yourself, do you say you're a New Yorker or do you say you're an American?
No, I say I'm from Brooklyn.
Like I said to you this morning, it depends on the situation that I'm asked.
That's true.
If I'm in a different country, I say I'm an American.
Yeah.
If I'm
But
in
even
another
for-
state, I'm a New Yorker.
I'll go one further. I even refer to myself as an Italian American.
You see, you shouldn't do that though.
No, you're right. I'm an American. My father
No,
was
you're
born
a New Yorker.
here.
New York is your country. Sir.
Okay, if you want to go that way, New York is not.
That's the way it was.
I don't think nobody believes New York is their country.
But that's the way it was
Not
originally
in
founded.
New York, especially with people upstate New York are very different from people downstate.
Oh,
New
absolutely.
York.
It's totally different.
Very
dynamic.
different.
Totally different.
I don't
dynamic.
really know how it is in Texas. If the northern Texas and the southern Texas are
Yeah.
different, but my brother lives in Albany. He lived in Albany. They are totally different world up there.
When you're in Texas, you see more Texas flags than you see American flags.
I'll bet.
And you come
You
up.
see stars and bars.
You come up here. Hey, why not? You come up here. Do you see a New York State flag anywhere? Except on state buildings?
No, not at all.
It's-
Not at all. I don't even know what the New York State flag looks like.
You see, that's sad.
pretty
Joe.
much, you know.
We'll have to get it up on the board for
There
you.
you go.
But I think Jay wants to say something.
Time for break.
Yes,
Great
please.
show, guys. Great show. Great interview.
Time for a break.
It was a great interview, I have to admit.
So this is the On Air Radio Show. We are going to take a short time out here. Check out our website, onairradioshow.com. You can find all this great information up there about how to reach us, how to contact us, how to talk with us. There's a live stream feature on there, so you can click on that little button and watch us do this mess that we do. And a little later on tonight, we'll have the link to the Texas Nationalist Movement on the site, so you can get more information directly from them. And I think you're ready for your break there, buddy?
Yeah.
You got your little something going on?
Yeah, we got some music for
All
the
right.
break.
Folks, we will see you on a short side of this break.
Okay, break time's over. Now let's get these guys back to work. It's the On-Air Radio Show live from the dungeon. Only on onairradioshow.com.
Hey, this is Ed Heavey. I'm at the On Air Radio Show, and you can listen live Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The guys are great and fun. And now that I said this, can I get the fuck out of here?
No.
Please?
No!
Stop it. Stop. It hurts. Yo, have fun. It's good here.
Okay, guys, break time is over. Now let's get back to work. It's the On-Air Radio Show live from the dungeon. Only on onairradioshow.com.
Yeah, we are back, huh?
Yes, we are, sir.
Okay.
Joe, Mr. Rooz decided that he had to take a squeeze.
Oh, yes. Drain the goose.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
His one-eyed monster had to cry.
Yeah. So we just had Daniel Miller on. He was very informative. We really enjoyed that interview with Daniel, and it was more of a soliloquy, really. But he definitely gave me some great information on the session. I don't think it'll ever happen personally, but what do you think, Jay?
Listen, you know what? It's hard to argue the federal government.
Oh, yeah, I understand his reasoning. There's no question about understanding his reasoning. But, it gets down to this whole thing of, we did fight a war and kill thousands of people over this at one time. It might have been 150 years ago, but it still was it's a pretty serious thing.
I will be honest with you, and I will tell you this, that if there's one state that could do it, it's Texas.
It's Texas.
With all the oil and shit that they produce there.
Yeah, financially, I don't think Texas would be hurting at all. No. Not financially.
Sorry, brother.
I
didn't see you walk in. I'm sorry.
They have
I know the whole left
they have
side thing.
all sorts of industry and oil and cattle and
warm water ports.
Warm water ports is right. They're right on the Gulf. Believe me, if any state could do it, you're right, Jay. If any state could be a country on its own, it would be Texas.
Hoorah!
Hoorah!
Right,
But they why do they need the United States? I guess maybe they did then. I don't think they need them now.
Listen, they seceded from Mexico. I think they'll give it a good shot at seceding from.
I think Mexico will probably put together an army and try and take them back.
So let's go to our first, one of our only topics, one of our two topics.
Oh yeah,
of the
you
night.
wanted to bring up that crazy story, right, Jay?
Joe is itching about this story.
I can't believe it. It's so.
Ain't that the truth? All right, so here we go.
Was it Long John Silver they got on the trial there or something?
Ideal music for this, I think.
Oh yeah, but God Almighty!
I think it's perfect.
So explain to me what's exactly going on here, Jay.
All righty, so a judge ruled that a parrot's words could be used as evidence in a murder trial.
Uh-huh.
And I will read the article verbatim here as it states.
This is the whole thing. I can see the parrot on the stand.
Is from
on a little perch going.
Absolutely insane.
This is from
they're out of order.
Fox News. All right, so
okay.
Thank you, Fox News, for the article.
Yeah,
but I actually heard
Court TV or something. Yeah.
Well, I actually heard this article, oddly enough, on ESPN Radio this morning.
That's serious stuff. I'm sure it was in their fluff pieces.
I damn nearly fell out of my chair when I heard
you
this.
did. Yeah.
All right, so a foul-mouthed parrot may provide key evidence in a murder trial of a Michigan woman accused of killing her husband more than a year ago.
Wow.
Glenna Durham, 48, was charged Thursday with first-degree murder in the death of Martin Durham, who was found shot 5 times in May of 2015 at their home in Sand Lake. Okay.
It's an eyewitness.
Glenna was found lying next to Martin with a gunshot wound to her head. So evidently she tried to murder-suicide and failed at the suicide.
Oh, maybe she was...
Stupid.
Maybe she missed on purpose.
Stupid. You're so stupid.
So what does the parents say? I mean,
All right. So
Martin's
family claims the couple's pet parrot, Bud, likely witnessed the murder after the bird was heard saying, "Don't fucking shoot," in a video taken shortly after Durham's dead. Shortly after Durham's death.
He used the F word, the parrot?
Okay. I will provide you that right now.
Oh,
right here on Happening Now, authorities studying the words of a parrot to
This is
decide
from
whether
Fox
the
News.
bird can provide evidence at trial. Martin Durham's parents believe that their son's pet parrot named Bud witnessed his murder and has been repeating his chilling last words ever since. And the victim's parents recording a video of the phrase that the parrot has been mimicking for more than a year. Listen closely.
Imagine a year. Sounds like an old man. Oh, rockin' sir. Sounds like a constipated old man. According to police, Glenna maintains her innocence, saying, "I know for a fact I did not kill my husband." But investigators,
yeah, I hope so.
But investigators suspect a murder-suicide plot gone awry. Glenna allegedly wrote 3 suicide notes, and the couple had financial problems, according to police records. One of the alleged suicide notes, left for one of her children, apologized for being a disappointment to you these last 12 years or so. The note asks for the reader to please forgive me. No matter what happens, I lose. I lost a son, and I'm going to lose a daughter-in-law. Martin's father, Charles Durham, told Fox 17. But when I wake up in the morning, my wife ain't crying and asking for justice. I can live with that.
I tell you, parrots are funny. I had an experience with a parrot myself one time. You know, it's very true. This is a true story. I'm on a job with my helper,
right?
And you know, I used to install draperies. That's why they call me Joey Drapes.
You know, I always wondered about that.
Yeah, I had a manufacturing business, manufacture and install draperies.
Actually, what Joey did was he fitted people for cement shoes, and then what he did was the drapes part was he used to put a nice overcoat on them.
I gave him a festoon,
so they looked nice when they went to the bottom of the sea.
So anyway, we're in this lady's house and we're installing her draperies, and we hear, "Help me! Help me!" And the lady goes, "Shut up! Shut up!" And she goes, "Help me! Help me!" So my helper looks at me. She says, I go,
"What the hell's going on?"
I go, "Mind your own business, man." I says, "You know, you're in a..." Because it sounded like it was coming from upstairs. I figured maybe she had a sick old mother or something, you know? And she goes, "Shut up! Shut up!" I said, "God damn it, shut up!" I go in there to collect the COD, and there's the parrot. He's sitting on the perch going, "Help me! Help me!" I call my helper, and I go, he almost passed out laughing.
But you have to wonder what the hell was going on that they taught him that.
Yeah, but could you imagine, right? I have to say, could you imagine, Joe Rooz, what it would be like to be on trial with that parrot?
Oh, yeah. You see, I don't think they could take the parrot's testimony. First of all, he has to be cross-examined. Mm-hmm. That's the rules of law. You have to be able, you know, you can't take testimony. And,
you have to be able to confront your witnesses.
Yeah,
right?
Not necessarily.
Well, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I'm going to explain how. I will explain how.
Okay.
Please do.
If you die.
Yeah. Okay.
How are you gonna confront your accuser?
Well, that's another thing. You talk about deathbed testimony,
right? So how would you confront somebody if they're already dead?
Well, you know, it's really not. It's really not. They do that a lot of times when people are very sick or they're dying or something like that. They'll take depositions. And a deposition is admissible in court, but it doesn't carry the same weight as, you know, being cross-examined.
But I think that's what this was supposed to be. I don't remember. It doesn't say specifically, but I think it was the parrot's deposition was, "Don't fucking shoot."
Deposition. Can you imagine a whole bunch of lawyers and the parrot sitting there going, "Oh, oh."
How do you think that would go, Joe?
She did it.
I could just imagine that one.
Oh God.
So Echo the parrot.
I want a cracker.
What's the parrot's name? Buddy.
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 Yeah. Oh, those Echo.
No, it was Bud.
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 Bud, can you please tell the court where exactly you were on the night in question?
Polly want a cracker. Polly want a cracker.
Okay. Bud, can you please tell the court what it is that you saw that night?
Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself.
All right, buddy. Is it because they're not giving you any crackers? Is that why you're testifying against this guy? You don't like the crackers you're getting?
Don't fucking shoot.
He did it. He did it.
You're a dick.
We've lost
He's a
it.
criminal. That's what he is.
We have lost it.
So we're going to change topics here. I got some other. Yeah, I got
We went
some.
from laughter
sorry.
to silence.
No. I had to swallow it. Okay, so this was something that caught my eye, which I thought was absolutely fucking funny.
Right cross, I'll tell you.
You shut up, you old man. I'll throw you down the stairs.
Okay.
So here in Staten Island, some weird shit happens. Don't ask me. I just read it. But in the other day, a man who was dubbed the Outer Bridge Cowboy supposedly was riding his horses over the Outer Bridge crossing from Jersey to Staten Island to raise money.
Yeah.
But here's an updated article. Okay, the upstate New York man dubbed as the Outer Bridge Cowboy might not be riding off into the sunset anytime soon. Todd Mishler, 80, told reporters outside the Ocean Breeze indoor horse riding area at about 5 p.m. Wednesday that it was still unclear what would happen to his horses, but he hoped to be reunited with them Thursday morning.
Well, he had Easy Pass on the horses. I don't know if you guys read the story. He had the Easy Pass attached to the horse's ass.
Do they charge you extra per axle?
Yeah, I was just going to say
now,
that.
my question is what does he become? 4 axles? I mean, the horse? Is it 4 axles?
I don't know.
Can you imagine if you pulled up to your brother's booth?
Don't you ever shut the fuck up?
Your brother would have charged him. I know you.
My brother would have charged him 4 axles.
My son-in-law tells me the funniest stories about people. Every time there's a toll raise, they blame him for it. You know, you know, like he did it. They haven't got the right chain. Oh, the stories he tells are so funny. Can you imagine if this horse went up to his booth? He would have quit right then and there.
Let's see. Supposedly, from what I originally read from the article, the man was raising money. I don't know what it was, but I'll get to that in a second. What do I?
No, I'm sorry. I was sort of like mouthing out loud. Not your fault, Jay. For once, it's not your fault.
Mishler caused a stir on Monday when he brought traffic to a crawl on the Outer Bridge crossing when he rode across the span on horseback, leading a second horse behind him. He was given 2 criminal court summonses for the ride, a Port Authority spokesman said. He had been staying at the West Shore Motel since this incident and says that he was in the process of being arraigned to have his horses transported over the Verrazano Bridge via trailer. He seemed to be in relatively good spirits, but lamented how people with horses are treated in other parts of the country. Well, he said, in Montana, they hang horse thieves.
Still?
Well, I think it's much ado about nothing. I mean, all right. Did he... basically, I guess they're making a little example out of this guy because they don't want to encourage this kind of thing.
Not for nothing, but he's a smart motherfucker.
Well, yeah,
he probably could have beat the toll, because I would have pulled up. If I was on that horse, they said to me $13, I'd say, where the fuck's his engine?
I believe that, right? Yeah.
I'd have the horse shit right in the lane.
Yeah. Okay.
Drop a big pile of poo.
Well, that is the thing that is outrageous. The price of the toll is $16, isn't it? Something like that?
I don't know. 13, 16,
I think the Outer Bridge or the Port Authority bridges is still 13, and the freaking MTA is
I just think that's
16
outrageous. You know, that kind of money. I mean, we in Staten Island, we get a little discount and everything, but you know, still.
There's
not as much.
Something that who was it on Facebook? Senator Borelli or Congressman Borelli or who else is there that's elected official in New York from Staten Island?
Maliatakos?
No.
Yeah.
Lanza,
yeah.
Maybe it was Lanza, but one of them,
Cusick?
it was either Lanza or Borelli. One of the two of them is trying to get through the state Senate a bill passed where the Staten Islanders would get a $3 toll on the Verrazano.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
If you were a resident, yeah.
Yeah.
He's trying to pass it. It's getting a lot of steam.
What do we pay now? We don't pay much more.
If you have Easy Pass, it's $6.50.
Right, and
$6.50.
They have this convoluted thing. Maybe I'm wrong on it, but they have this convoluted process of at certain times you have peak times and weekend.
If you have 3 people in the car, there's something in Jersey. If you go over the bridge a certain amount of times a month, they lower your toll.
Well, they do that with the Port Authority.
Port
Authority
right.
bus.
The Jersey commuter pass or something like
Absolutely. What were you telling me about the mall? Somebody jumped off the mall?
Already. In Staten Island Mall,
Yeah.
evidently, the way I found out was my sister-in-law works for H&M. And yesterday she was supposed to work, and I'm up in my because I have a 2-family house, so she lives downstairs with my mother-in-law, and we're upstairs.
Yeah.
So I hear banging. I'm going, what the fuck's going on downstairs? I'm like, did I leave the door open? Did somebody get in? Somebody rummaging through my house? So I walk downstairs, and she's there doing some, redecorating. Okay. And I said, I thought you had work. She says, no, I got a text message from my store not to come in. The store was closed, and so was the mall. I said, did they give you a reason? She goes, yeah, somebody committed suicide. I was like,
in the store?
In the mall.
In the mall?
What happened was, a friend of mine actually works another friend of mine is the manager over at Stride Ripe. And she said she saw the whole thing. What happened was an older gentleman, they said the man was 84, took a chair from the food court, pulled it over to the railing, climbed the chair, climbed the railing, and jumped.
No hesitation whatsoever?
Splat.
No hesitation whatsoever?
No. Did it at the wall,
huh? Now, what bothers me is not one soul stopped him. Nobody grabbed him to try to say, hey, whoa, guy, don't,
It depends on the man's,
The guy's 84. What's he going to do to you?
No, I'm not saying that. I would think most people...
Fuck, I would have grabbed him, threw him to the ground. If he breaks a hip, so what?
If you realized what he was doing, but, if you do it right
away... The man brought a chair over to the wall and climbed up it.
He might have just...
That, to me, would have been signs...
a light bulb or something.
That there's a problem.
There's a problem, yes.
Well,
you know
what? And this is just off the cuff. Maybe... people are so afraid to get involved because of lawsuits, litigation, and things like that people are hesitating to get involved.
I think what Jay's saying is this guy's got some substance for once in his
life. I agree with him. I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm not condoning that.
I'm not a total asshole,
Yes,
you
are.
You are.
But if you're standing right near the guy or something, maybe you could do something about it. You understand? But I don't know. You've been to the mall. You know what it is. The food court is over here. The railing is over there. It's quite a distance, And if you don't realize what's going on, or a passerby doesn't realize what's going on.
Supposedly he landed in front of the gap.
Wow. He
Right
probably had a big gap in his head. That's pretty
I actually, one of the people I work with.
That's got to be 30, 40 feet high.
Yeah, easy. Yeah. There was somebody that I work with, her son and his friends were at the mall when it happened. Wow. He walked past and snapped a picture. I saw the guy was face down in a pool of his own blood. But I'll read the article. It says Francesca.
Did anybody know why he did it?
Yeah, I got it here. That's what I was getting to. You fuck. God. Here. Okay.
You had it.
Joe. No.
Don't you ever shut the fuck up.
Never.
There you go, Joe. Francesco Colina, the Great Kills man who jumped to his death at the Staten Island Mall, was terminally ill. He had cancer and was depressed, said his daughter, Francesca. He was a great man, a great father, and a great grandpa. Video surveillance showed that Colina, 84, stood on a chair and jumped over the railing, according to a source with knowledge of the police investigation.
I can think of better ways to kill myself.
Multiple witnesses claimed they saw the senior citizen push a chair to the second-floor railing in the Sears wing, jump, and land in front of the gap. An off-duty firefighter who was shopping in the mall immediately ran over to the man who was lying face down and bleeding heavily, a source said. Police and firefighters rushed to the New Springville Shopping Center complex after the 11:19 a.m. incident. Colina was rushed to the hospital in Ocean Breeze in critical condition. He was pronounced dead a short time later. Yeah, pretty much 84. Your body's pretty brittle.
Well,
So.
I kind of understand he was terminally ill. Probably didn't want to go through the, I'm going to die anyway. I'll go out on my own terms. I would have picked a nicer way to die, personally.
Well, what was bad was the fact that, not for there's a picture. If you look here, Joe
I don't
Rooz.
want to see it.
No. There's a white cloth covering. If you look here, it looks like the feet or something.
So what did they do? Close the mall?
They closed that one section of the mall.
Sure, yeah. They have to have an investigation.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, they got to look into it and everything. But what else? Yeah, I mean, listen, you know what? I've been there and done that. Like, I've been in the position of being terminally ill and everything. But you know what?
Yeah, but you're a young guy. You wouldn't want to kill yourself.
You know what? You contemplate it.
You got a shot, though.
Yeah, but when the doctor says the C word, thoughts go through your head.
Yeah.
Sometimes that you just can't control.
Yeah.
But like I said, I feel like we as a society are just a bunch of dicks.
You don't have faith in your fellow human beings, do you?
No.
I have no faith in humanity whatsoever.
God.
My faith in humanity has gone down the shitter.
I take it on a one-person by one-person basis.
No.
Right, yeah.
There's a lot of fucked up people out there. There's no
Humanity
question about
in a
it.
whole
But
is
there's a lot
shitty.
of good people out there, too.
I don't think so. Not anymore.
What was that?
I don't know.
Ridiculous number of
It's your laptop, I think. There.
new labels. Like
Nope.
this.
Nope. Coming from the TV or it's coming from the computer. Let's see.
We have an ad running. Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, we have an ad on live stream running. Because we got kicked off of live stream because of the internet went down here. So, but anyway, I personally, like I said, I would have grabbed the guy and been like, "Yo, come here."
We would hope so, yeah. That somebody would have been able to do that, and maybe, well, who knows?
I would. I
maybe
mean,
the guy was in
listen, not for nothing, but everybody had to have somebody there had to have knowledge, not in the sense of like they knew the guy was going to jump, but you see somebody pull a chair over from the food court
I wouldn't think
to the railing, and then you see the guy climb on the chair. What do you think the man is going to do?
My first action would be, hey, buddy, be careful. You're going to fall down,
I'd throw you over with him for being a tool.
I just couldn't. I can't contemplate suicide. I really can't. I don't think. I think that's the. I've never been in a position, but my life is precious, even my age. Fuck it.
Got some audio of while the guy was jumping.
Oh no!
Mana the meatloaf!
We got some kind of
Fuck!
We got splat.
His last words.
Splat.
Ma, the meatloaf! Fuck! Anyway, but it's I just personally think, and what's bad is that all the kids that had left school because they were celebrating graduation and everything had to see that.
Oh yeah, that's the real.
Imagine how traumatic that has to be for these kids.
Absolutely, yeah. Don't worry.
There was one report of a girl who called her mother and said, "Get me out of here! Get me out of here!"
Sure.
He just committed suicide.
Did you ever see anybody die? Have you guys ever seen anybody die?
Mm-hmm. I've picked up people who have committed suicide. Yeah.
Ooh, wow. I saw it once on the train. I was going to work.
But most of the people that I ever
had a heart attack or something, but he just turned milk white and died right on the spot.
Most of the people that I ever had to deal with that committed suicide or something was just like pill popped or something like that.
Mm.
One of my best friends is an EMT for the FDNY, and he deals with overdoses all the time and stuff like that.
I guess you get immune to it or something, like if you're an EMS worker or something like that.
You do.
Is he out here or is he in the city?
Who?
Your best friend.
KS?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's here.
KS1.
KS1. Actually, the reason why the man was upset was...
This house is a fucking prison on planet bullshit! In the galaxy of this sucks camel dicks!
That's why he committed suicide.
Oh,
the nursing home was just too bad.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean,
Was he alone or were people
by
with
himself,
him?
I believe.
He was by himself? Yeah.
So, I mean, it's crazy. It's not the first mall suicide from what I was reading.
Yeah.
Back in
Jumper's Paradise.
early 2000s, there was a woman who jumped in the Queens Mall. She committed suicide the same way.
When was that?
I don't know, 2006. I thought I saw her online or something like that. But it's scary to think that as a society we've just become numb to things like this, and number two, that nobody stopped this man.
But like I said,
that is something that to me boggles my mind.
I think
that my daughter and my nieces have to grow up in this type of society where nobody gives a shit about their fellow man. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
Don't say that. There's been a whole bunch of stories where guys have fallen off the train platform and guys have jumped on to give them a hand. I've seen maybe 10 stories in the last few months about these wackos pushing people in, and guys jumping in and saving
And how much evil have you seen in the news?
Oh, believe me.
More evil than there is
I
good.
can't deny that. I mean, believe me.
There's more evil than there is
good. But there are good people out there too, Jay.
I'm not denying that. I will agree with that. There are good people out there.
Breaking news here. U.S. airstrike kills approximately 250 ISIS fighters.
Good.
An American airstrike killed roughly 250 ISIS militants outside Fallujah, Iraq Wednesday. U.S. defense officials tell Fox News the airstrike, one of the deadliest against terror group, came one day after suicide bombers attacked Istanbul's Ataturk airport, an attack U.S. and Turkish officials suspect was planned by ISIS.
They got to run those missions every day. Every day they have to run those missions.
That was my next story, which was the Ataturk bombing.
Yes.
Did they ever figure out who was responsible? Did anybody claim responsibility?
ISIS has not claimed responsibility as far as I've heard, but they're do
presuming
believe
that it's ISIS.
That it was ISIS.
Now, supposedly, what I heard,
but John Kerry was on the talk circuit a little while ago today, talking about how ISIS is on the run, and this was an act of desperation on their part. So they have some acknowledgement that they believe this is ISIS.
Listen, not for nothing, but there was, from what I had heard in the news, the Turkish government had warned people who were traveling by air of an upcoming event that was possible. So that the warning had gone out. They just didn't, I guess, plan on it being that day. A future attack, I think, was how it was put out there. But
it was well organized from what they were saying.
From what they said, they walked in with Kalashnikovs. And before they even reached the first checkpoint, started unloading rounds. I mean, just blasting.
What they did was the first bomber.
The fuck?
What they did was the first. I'm so stupid. The first bomber
you ain't shitting.
Actually took out the security people, killing himself. And after that, the second bomber they shot, he went down. I'm sure you saw the video. The third bomber, he sort of became
I heard
part
it was
of
only
the crowd.
2.
No, there was 3. And he became part of the crowd. That's the guy who killed most of the people.
It was 42 dead as of now.
42 dead, yeah. 50 dead last week in the other one. 52 dead. It's getting crazy. I mean, it really is getting crazy out there.
Turkey has observed a national day of mourning after a gun and suicide bomb attack on Istanbul's Ataturk airport killed 42, including 13 foreign nationals. 3 attackers, yes, you were right, Joe, I'm sorry. 3 attackers arrived in a taxi and began firing at the terminal entrance late on Tuesday. They blew themselves up after police fired back. Officials earlier said 239 people were injured, with 41 in intensive care. Let's see, what else do we have? Authorities have suggested that they were foreign nationals, but at this time it was not confirmed. Mr. Yildirim,
that's close enough.
Yeah, that's close enough. The Prime Minister said early signs pointed to so-called Islamic State. He said that one of the attackers blew himself outside the terminal while the other 2 detonated explosives inside.
Sure. People are committed to die. It's very hard to prevent. I mean, if you're going to die,
oh my God,
you can kill just about anybody.
Look at this picture. It's a picture of one of the workers in the airport cleaning the blood off the ceiling.
Yeah, right.
Good Lord.
Crazy, huh?
It is. Turkish media states that 42 people were killed, with a cafe worker dying late on Wednesday. 13 of those who died were foreign or dual nationals, meaning that they had dual citizenship in other countries. The UK Prime Minister David Cameron said there was no reports yet of any British casualties, but Foreign Office was in contact with Turkish authorities. According to a speaker from Turkey, Ankara said that despite being a target of the most brutal terrorist groups, he added that the people who performed this were not Muslim. Quite interesting there.
Those damn Baptists.
But supposedly I was hearing on the news that in Turkey they are in conflict with like 3, besides themselves.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 3 separate entities that want to just kill every Turkish. Yeah. One of which is internal and 2 are external extremists.
That's interesting.
But yeah, it's pretty wild what's going on in the world.
I didn't hear they were not Muslim, but who knows? Yeah, they have these American terrorists, for Christ's sake. Let's face it.
I guess they didn't find any garb, Muslim garb.
I guess so.
What do they call those sheet burkers?
Sorry,
the burqa,
Parker,
the hijab,
Parker.
Parker.
That's part of that national garb now. That and an AK-47.
You're gonna die! You are gonna die!
That's what the U.S. said as they bombed ISIS.
Oh, my.
Well, you know what? The world is just a very sad, sad place right now.
Yeah.
And it's sad to think that my daughter, who is 3, and my nieces, who are 5, are going to be brought up in this.
You know what? I hope that
I hope the world
changes by the time they're adults. You're right.
Me too.
Yeah.
Does a whole 360.
Absolutely. Anyway, very interesting show today, guys.
It was a very interesting show tonight.
Covered a lot of topics. And
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
So, folks, this is the On-Air Radio Show, broadcasting live on onairradioshow.com. We are going to sign off momentarily. Folks, check out our website, onairradioshow.com. If you like what you hear, or if you don't like what you hear, click that donate button and help us keep the lights on here at the studio.
That's right.
And check us out on Twitter at On Air Radio Net.
Hey, the guy that came over on horse and by horse on the Outer Bridge, you think he had this going?
He might have, yeah.
He should have, right?
He might have.
I like the idea he put the...
As he's driving over. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Big JP. We want to thank you for being a part of this craziness that we call the On-Air Radio Show. And, ladies and gentlemen, please be nice to your fellow human beings every once in a while. Joe, take us out.
Folks, good night, goodbye from all of us here at the On-Air Radio Show.
Peace!